We'll open this meeting of the Tiverton Town Council with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Lambert.
Present.
Councilor Roderick.
Present.
Councilor Ruda. Present. Councilor Durfee. Present. Councilor Boland.
Here.
Councilor Leonard.
Present.
Councilor Costa. Here. All present.
Tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting, May 10th, 2010. Councilor Costa and Councilor Roderick abstained, absent. Approval of executive session minutes of May 10th, 2010. Councilors Costa and Councilor Roderick abstained, absent. Receipt of minutes from the following boards and commissions. School Committee 5, Pecassid Hill Cemetery, Prevention Coalition, Wastewater Management, Historical Cemetery, Municipal Buildings Advisory Committee, and Recycling Landfill Committee 2. Correspondence received and filed. Resolutions received opposing mandatory binding arbitration legislation from the Situate School Committee. Opposing contract continuation from the Situate School Committee. Support of waiving recording fees for special loans to flood victims from Charlestown. Supporting legislation repealing MB and Trailer Excise Tax Elimination Act of 1998 and allowing cities and towns to recoup those revenues should reimbursement be substantially reduced or eliminated from the Burrillville Town Council. Requesting Federal Energy Regulation Commission deny application for Hess LNG to build in Mount Hope Bay. Received from Representative Edwards supporting application by Town Planner for Tiverton to be designated a Preserve America community. Received from Tiverton Planning Board regarding status of surety for Country View Estates. Jane Biddle, Singing Out Against Hunger, request public hearing on July 12th on sound variance for outdoor musical fundraiser on September 11, 12, 13. Lisa Machado, Coastal Roasters, requesting public hearing on July 12th on sound variance for outdoor musical fundraiser on September 10th, 11, and 12. Leroy Kendricks, Chairman of the Wastewater Management Commission, request public hearing for proposed revision to Tiverton Sewer Use Ordinance on July 12th. And that's tonight's consent agenda.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I would like to have one item removed, and that is item 1B.
And I also would like to have item 3A, and on the next page, it is 6. Request public hearing for proposed revisions.
Okay, Mr. President, I'd like to remove A3, 7.
I'd like to remove 3A2.
3A2.
I would amend my motion to reflect those withdrawals.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with those items, without those items that were removed. All those in favor? Okay, moving on. Is first item removed was the correspondence 3A2, opposing contract continuation from Situate School Committees. Is that the one, Hannibal?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, 1B was in the executive session. It
Oh, I'm sorry.
involves some
okay.
language,
All right.
and we can consider it in executive
Okay,
session.
that's the first one. I'm sorry, Hannibal. You were right. I forgot that one. So we're looking at the executive session minutes on the May 10th, 2010.
It was just some correction in the language, and I assume it would be more appropriate to take it up in the executive session.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to have this heard in executive session.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to take item 1B in executive session. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, Hannibal, now we're down to the correspondence 3A2.
Yeah, except I think Louise had one before I did, but I'd be happy to.
No, Louise's is after yours, I believe.
In any case, 3A1 and 2 are matters which I think we should take a stand on and let our state representatives, including our Senate, know that we do agree, we do oppose binding arbitration, and we do oppose contract continuation.
We do, hold on a
I
second.
would make that in the form of a motion.
I would second that motion.
Any further discussion?
I just want a clarification. Mr. Costa, is your motion that you're saying that we are not in favor of binding arbitration?
Correct.
For the
We're not-
schools
We are
and-
opposed to mandatory binding arbitration. I would take that as a council position and vote on it, see if everybody agrees. And I would take a position opposing contract continuation for the same reason.
Okay, then, if we're going to do that, then we have to get it on our agenda to have a resolve to send to,
I was advised that was true about, from the town clerk, so.
Yeah, I think,
okay.
Mr. President, do we need a motion then to move this to our next meeting?
I don't believe so. I think we can just advise the clerk to put on our agenda for the next meeting a resolve on both of those issues. Okay, now we're moving on to 3A7.
Okay, I would just like to recuse myself from voting on that particular, accepting it regarding country view.
Okay, then, is there a motion to receive that?
I'll make a motion that we receive the
Second.
Okay, we have a motion.
planning board with regard to the status of a surety.
Okay. We have the motion to accept the receipt of those, that correspondence. All those in favor? Opposed? There's one abstention because he's recused himself. Okay, coming back to the table. We will now take up the
This-
item 6.
Yes, on page 2.
Yes.
In looking this over, I really had a question as to whether this was ripe for advertising for hearing. And I was going to ask, because it seemed to incorporate some state legislation, which we don't really need to do. And I was going to ask a question of the town solicitor. Have you reviewed or had a chance to review this proposal?
No, I haven't. It was not available at the time when we met to prepare the agenda.
Okay.
I would anticipate, obviously, reviewing it prior to the public hearing.
Well, once we advertise a public hearing, so it would seem to me some things are in order, and I'm not certain that we need to incorporate state law, if indeed, state law is state law, and it looks to me as if we're incorporating that, which we should not do not do. And I would like to see this reviewed by you before we act on it. So I will make a motion that we continue this until the town solicitor has reviewed it.
Do you want, may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Perhaps to move it forward for the public hearing contingent upon the solicitor's review, because if we wait till your next meeting in June, then we'll be too late for the July 12th with the 21 days of advertising. So if you want to make it contingent upon that.
Here's my concern about that, Andy. Let's assume, and somebody walks in the town clerk's office tomorrow and says, I want to take a look at this. And this will be an interesting item from sales brokers, et cetera. And we hand them this, and it's not right. Then that's not proper procedure, in my view. Okay? And I don't think you're going to look at it by tomorrow morning, so, is that a fair statement?
Probably is.
It probably is. So let the chips fall, but I'd be inclined to continue this to the next meeting when I think it may be in proper form.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion that we continue this to the next meeting for action.
I would second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to continue the request for the public hearing on the revision of the sewer use ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That item's continued to our next meeting. Sitting as a Board of Licensing Commissioners, Randy Santeri, 520 Main Road, doing business as Randy's Deli and Bakery, requests approval of victualling and holiday licenses, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Mr. President?
Yes.
After we put this on the agenda, we realized he would not need a holiday license, so we will be refunding him that fee.
Okay.
So it's just for the little...
So it's just for the victualling license.
I move the license be issued, meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carries. Narragansett Electric, doing business as National Grid, requests late renewal for street excavation license, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
I'll make a motion that request be that license be issued.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Appointments and resignations. The resignation received from Michael Mello, a member of the zoning board.
I'll make a motion with deep regret that we accept the resignation from Michael Mello, a member of the zoning board.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? And a resignation received from Raymond LaFazi, a member of the zoning board.
I'll again make the motion to accept the resignation with deep regret from Raymond LaFazia as a member of the zoning board.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Unfinished business. The Honorable June Gibbs is straight ticket voting, continued from the May 10th meeting.
Gibbs here.
To have a resolution tonight. I'm only here to answer any questions. And
I believe we had Mr. Moran here. I think he had something he wanted to say on this issue at our last meeting. Well, counsel, what's your pleasure? We didn't allow Mr. Moran to speak at our last meeting. We didn't tell him this was continued. I do not see him here this evening.
I'd like to make this suggestion. I personally am in favor of having a resolution, but I also recognize that we didn't allow Mr. Moran to speak, and we should do that, because he will be against this. And in fairness, I think he should be heard on it. I think you did have a resolution at one point, I thought, that,
I think so. I think there was in the earlier one.
right, we didn't perhaps get it last week, or the last time we met.
No, we didn't. I have
But-
it with me if you want it.
Well,
Well,
I would wish you would give a copy to our
I
clerk
will.
so that
I'll go
we
in
will
my
have,
bag.
so that we will have a resolution
Yeah.
when we do discuss the issue.
but I will then move, now, the 14th is our agenda is going to be sort of wild. Is that fair?
Yes, the meeting will be at the high school.
At the high school, yeah.
It might be wise to just defer this to later in the meeting to see if,
Yeah.
Charlie comes at a later time, so that,
That sounds good.
because that way there, we can probably
Resolve it.
resolve this issue this evening.
This is a proposed resolution. It would be helpful to you.
Um,
It would keep it.
I hope you have some time, because we're going to defer this matter to later in the meeting
We
to see
do.
if Charlie...
Oh, you're gonna stay tonight?
Well, we're going to try to get it resolved tonight.
Oh, okay, I'll wait,
All right, thank you.
no problem.
I'll entertain a motion to defer this matter to a time later.
I
in
will
the
so
meeting.
move that we take it up at a later date, a later time.
This evening, and I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to defer this to a later time during our meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Opposed?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in favor.
Okay. Okay, motion carries unanimous. Financial business, the wastewater management commission requests a transfer of $6,950 from account, wastewater account L0102-27701 to wastewater account 552430 for pumping station repairs.
Could somebody tell me what account L0100207701 is? Does it have a title for that account?
Called the L account.
That's the old L account that we used
An
to...
L account?
The L account, yes.
The old L account? So be it.
It's an account that was set up for the wastewater customers. I believe it's the monies that are generated through the...
Through the user
The
fees.
user fees.
That's
Okay,
correct.
but strictly a wastewater management thing?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Originally, it was set up to collect and then pay Fall River. It was just a
Yes.
pass-through account.
Okay.
The schooner pumping repairs, just give me the location of that.
Schooner Drive is down the...
Okay, a Starwood Pumping Station, okay.
I would move the approval of the request.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the request to transfer the $6,950. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Town Administrator requests approval for carry forward of $22,080 to FY 2011 in account 098-953 non-recurrent to fund purchase of used mower brush cutter.
We have $22,000 in our capital fund this year for the purchase of a mower brush cutter, and we have $10,000 that was approved at the financial town meeting out of the FY11 budget for the same purpose. And what we'd like to do is carry this $22,000 forward, combine it with the $10,000, and then later on the agenda tonight, there is a request to go out for bid.
And the bids are returnable when?
That date hasn't been set yet. I was going to do it after your approval.
Well, I'm wondering if it's a carryover account or whether they'll be returnable and we'll be acting on it at our last meeting in June.
No, it won't be awarded until...
It can't be awarded until after.
But we could award it effective as of.
Yeah.
That's true.
But
Okay,
if we carry forward the funds, they go into the 2011 account.
That's all right.
and
I won't-
therefore, it can be spent any time after that.
I'll make a motion that we,
One earlier than...
I'll make a motion that we carry forward for a quick action, the 22080.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion.
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay.
This, I think now will be the third year that this has come up. And it goes back to, and I'll go back to the first time it was brought to us, that it was going to cost $22,000. And now we're going to add another 10, and now we're up to $32,000. And I keep wondering why this, because it started out was going to be a used or refurbished mower cutter, and the cost keeps rising, and it troubles me, and it troubled me the last two times we've discussed this.
I think it was misrepresented the first time we discussed this, and someone thought that they could take from the non-operating monies that were there, added to the number, and have the number necessary to purchase a piece of equipment. When instructed that that could not take place, the next alternative was to get the funds approved in the next budget to be added to it to come up with the correct number to be able to purchase the piece of equipment. And that's what I understand happened, is that with this money there, they requested and went through the budget process to get an additional $10,000 to be able to buy the equipment, because we wouldn't allow the money from the brush cutting account to be added to a capital account. So they used the process of the budget to be able to have sufficient funds to purchase that piece of equipment.
I would hope that there'd be more than one bidder, and that the price would be less than the amount that has been appropriated.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
No, this is the third time it has come up, but I think we struggled with the fact that it was a proposal to lease it, and then that added the price. But
I think this is a correction, too. It was what
Yeah.
we told them they needed to do in order to get this through, and they went and did what we had requested, so.
Yeah. I'll make a motion. Oh, we did. Sorry.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-1. New business? Oh, Charlie's here now. Charlie, we're going to go back then and address the issue under unfinished business of the straight ticket voting, and you wish to be heard on this. We delayed this action till you arrived so we could hear you.
Thank you, I didn't realize it'd be up this early. Thank you, and I understand, I owe some thanks to Ms. Durfee for moving that it be held over.
Please use the microphone, Charlie, so you can be heard.
Okay, Charlie.
So much for that.
Not that way. This one moves better.
No, neither one moves any better. Right beneath the table. Try that.
Maybe this one moves better.
Yeah.
Hello there. Yeah, I have a lot of problems with this particular proposal, as you know. If you look at the figures, I think you find them most unimpressive and most unpersuasive in terms of what goes on down the ballot. And I think, for the most part, you can attribute them to what I like to call down ballot drop-off. This is not a fictive thing. This has been addressed by a number of people over the years. One of them being a premier political scientist, Dwayne Lockhart, who had at least a little bit of association with Ms. Durfee's undergraduate place, and he was also a premier, of course, a political scientist at Princeton for a number of years. Published this work, The Politics of State and Local Government. And in it, he says, there is in fact some evidence, in fact there's more than some, but especially where the long bedsheet type of ballot is offered, the bewildered voter, then the position that the candidate has on the ballot can become a decisive factor. Whoever comes first on the list reaps extra votes. And this is just not his theorizing as a political scientist. He cites, in a footnote here, that there is convincing evidence that location on a ballot can be a boon or a burden. In a very detailed and precise analysis of ballot position, D.S. Heacock and H.M. Bain Jr. showed that, particularly for inconspicuous offices on long ballots, the accident of having first place on the ballot list could mean an increase in votes. And further commentary to this in this vein is offered by Howard White in Voters Plump for First on the List, which was published in the National Municipal Review back in 1950. So that people down the ballot are just, on a vertical ballot, are just not going to get as many votes in most situations is about as assured as you can get in the world of elective politics. It won't happen on every ballot. You'll get ballots such as ones that involve maybe delegates to the Democratic National Convention, where people who look for their people, whether they be on the bottom, in the middle, or whatever. But on the average long municipal ballot, what you're going to get is a fall off down below. Part of that, too, if you look at the figures presented by Ms. Gibbs, can be that parties do better down below as a result of campaigning by the parties. And after all, the parties do take some responsibility, at least for, I would say, for putting together a slate which, you know, the voters will go for each and every individual as much as possible. And I think it's really not fair to the average voter to suggest that he or she just willy-nilly goes with a party line. In some cases, I'm sure that it does happen, but I don't think it's a regular thing. One thing that's really problematic about taking off the party line option, it will result in a definite slowdown of the voting process in general elections. You have a lengthy ballot, no question. That's not what really is sought in the states having the, you know, from the Constitution, having the right to, shall we say, oversee the ballot process and so on, and to get as much of a true valuation of the voters' feelings as possible. The will of the electorate is not going to be borne out if a number of people are turned away at the polls. They just don't wait any longer, and they leave, and I've seen it happen, and they don't get back, and it's unfortunate. You like to see as many as possible who are eligible vote and weigh in, and certainly taking the party line option out of there will slow down the process. I suppose this is one of these things I could talk on for hours and hours and hours, and you haven't got hours and hours and hours. But
We won't give you hours.
I didn't think, nor did I think you would. So I'm trying to, shall we say, compress this. On the constitutional level, and that's where I really get going strongly, it was the idea of freedom of association in politics, a value that now is, I think, thoroughly recognized, that came forth basically originally in the I would say academically, in a book that was put out by, again, somebody Ms. Durfee may have had association with, Thomas I. Emerson and David Haber at the Yale Law School, in their book on the political and civil rights in the United States, and opening their chapter on the right of franchise, they noted essentially that although the United States Constitution nowhere explicitly recognizes a right to form political associations, it is generally accepted that the First Amendment rights of freedom of speech, press and assembly, and to petition the government for redress of grievances, taken in combination, establish a broader guarantee to the right of political association. And I could give you case after case after case where it's come up. It started probably judicially, mainly with the, I would think where it applies to pure political ballot things in the 1968 case of Williams versus Rhodes, where the United States Supreme Court held Ohio election laws put unduly burdensome obstacles in the way of third party and minor party people trying to access state ballots. So it came up in the context of access to the ballot. And Mr. Justice Black found the state placed unequal burdens on two different, although overlapping kinds of rights: the right of individuals to associate for the advancement of political beliefs, and the right of qualified voters to cast their votes effectively. And the idea of having an effective ballot comes up continually from the state's point of view. And, but let's put it this way. A number of non-liberals and a number of centrists and one pure liberal on the court have strongly upheld the constitutional right to freedom of association, political association. I think one of the main cases is the famous Buckley versus Vallejo, the voting rights case. And it comes up, and it's very strongly.
Charlie, how do you feel that not being able to vote a straight party ticket doesn't allow somebody a political association?
What is noted in these cases is to have an effective voice. Originally, the right starts from the individual, but to have an effective voice, it has to have the power of numbers. And that's the idea of the freedom of political association. The court cases, the Supreme Court...
Ending a straight party ticket does in no way stop you from having a political affiliation. What it does, in the case of a town like Tiverton, where you look at the undervote in our nonpartisan races, in terms, there's something going wrong here. Is it the straight party ticket where somebody thinks they have voted for everybody because you, as a chair of a Democratic town committee, says, here's a Democratic candidate you should be voting for, and people see those names on the ballot and push the straight party lever and think they voted for those people because the Democrats have said those are Democrats, but they're listed on a ballot as a nonpartisan.
Yeah,
and if you don't
and
take
I'm
the
not-
time, if you don't take the time to finish the ballot,
And I'm not talking about...
our
this
system doesn't
strictly
kick
in
the ballot out
context
and
of
tell
the-
you you made a mistake.
What?
Our system doesn't kick the ballot out and say
No.
you didn't vote for a particular race.
And I know it doesn't. And I sympathize with one of the problems that Mrs. Gibbs and some of her people have with this. You've got to be more explicit, and I'd be glad to help her try to clear up the ballot. It should be clearer in certain respects. And I'd be glad to help, and it'll probably take legislation to do it. I don't think it can be done administratively because of the legislature's, overarching power with regard to the ballot. But I don't see any real problem with getting that done. To have a clear ballot, and people know I like a clear ballot. They've heard me since the Florida miscount of, they know how I inveigh against unclear ballots. I don't, I can't stand them, and I like to see them clear. But I don't like to see anybody undercutting what is a basic constitutional, even though it's taken in a broad sense, and these justices talk about it, anything that would undercut their power to have effective an effective say in government. And quite frankly, I think anything that...
Your argument, I think, goes the other way, because the way the ballot is set up here, especially in this town, I think it's unfair to those people because they are not having their voice heard when they think they are. And I think that's the argument about not having the straight party vote.
As you recall, I said, if there's anything along that line that can be done to make it clear and get rid of the confusion regarding the ballot, let's do it. We should do it. It can be done. It can be done on the face of the ballot itself. It can be done with posters in the carols.
It's not
It
being,
can be done.
it's
with
not being
posters.
done, but the
And it can be
resolution.
done, by the way, it can be done with literature that the parties put out.
Well, But currently, it
And
isn't
do,
being done,
sometimes.
and at least this resolution says that until you can fix the problem to have that, we shouldn't
But you
have it.
don't, so you don't, all right.
Well, honestly,
You're dealing with a constitutional thing here. Now you're going to try to correct the thing with something that's probably going to be ineffective. And guess what? It's not a less drastic means, let alone a least drastic means. And the point that that Justice Thurgood Marshall made back in 1970, the late 70s in a case out of Illinois, you don't undercut constitutional things by not trying at least a less drastic or a least drastic means. You don't do it. And this, I say, is in essence a constitutional value, and you don't. I don't want to see the town of Tiverton put in the position of doing something else that's not not quite that bright. And
Well, I see this-
we've been there lately.
But I see this as a town passing a resolve to ask the General Assembly to
Charlie,
take an action.
for as many arguments that you make, there are arguments and good arguments on the other side.
What are
And
they?
frankly...
What are they? Do you really think this will be effective?
I think any time that we
No.
or the legislature can encourage people to vote for their school committee and their town council, yes, I do.
I agree.
These are shocking statistics.
No, they're not. Some of those
60?
are mere down ballot drop-offs, as I've said
Well,
before.
I'll
Look
tell
at
you
them
that-
cloely.
Yeah, but you know, here we are
I'll
faced
cite
with
you the
something.
towns.
I have to confess that I had some of those teachers that you mentioned, but I didn't learn my lessons well, obviously.
Well, I read
Here it
them.
is, supported by Common Cause, the League, 23 councils, Rhode Island Board of Elections, the Rhode Island Town and Cities Clerks. But basically, I found the statistics shocking that a number of people in this town will not vote for the school board or the town council.
So let's,
And, I mean, your proposal, I don't think, is a practical one.
my proposal is very practical. Get it so you've got a clearer ballot.
Okay.
Put out the material that would educate people, that would, obviate any doubts. If you want to put people out there from election authorities out there to let people know in advance exactly what this means verbally, you can do that. But I think it can be better done by postings and things of that nature. I don't think you go and undercut a constitutional right to take up this particular proposal, which will, I
Rhode Island
almost
is the-
guarantee will be totally ineffective.
Rhode Island is the only New England state that upholds this practice.
Doesn't matter to me if we're the only
I
one
know
in
it
the
doesn't,
country.
but Massachusetts has a very strong party system. Other states do as well. I think your arguments fall flat.
I think you have the right to make the same argument you're making to us, because all we're doing, if we pass this resolution, is asking the General Assembly to look at this and consider the matter. So you'll have the same right to go there.
Oh, I'm
We're not-
sure I
we're
will.
not- We're not taking an action.
But I don't-
All we're saying is that we support this legislation because, based on the numbers that are provided to us, there are a lot of people who are not getting the message.
Yeah, but look closely at some of the things in the towns like Burrillville and Narragansett and others. Look closely. Some of it's probably no more than down ballot fall off. You know what happens, Louise. Do I?
Charlie, your
I don't even have to
arguments
recite
don't
it.
hold water with me, because, you know, we had an election almost 2 years ago, and through the luck of the draw, I think I was 14th out of 14.
Yeah.
On the bottom of the ballot.
Sometimes you make-
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, and turned out to be the top vote getter, so your argument about your placement on the ballot.
Doesn't always work.
Well, it doesn't, no, I
But-
didn't say it always works,
They
but
got
what I'm
studies.
saying to you is, it shows to me that the people who are voting are looking down there and not just picking the top 7.
Good,
So
good. That's why I'm
So
saying-
bottom ballot drop-off, you know,
It does happen.
It may happen. I still
lot.
say we have a resolution before us.
Well,
The resolution is here
Hey.
to ask the General Assembly, where you'll get to make your same argument. That's
as-
who you need to commit. You're telling me that in order to make it right, it would have to go before the legislature. Well, you know what? This is going to open that opportunity at the legislature to make it right, because if you've got a better way, explain to them.
Quite frankly, as a practical politician, I would not hold your breath that will occur. But,
I would make a suggestion that I move the question on this.
Okay.
Do we have a question?
Yes. We have a resolution that we had put off until tonight's meeting, and the resolution is as
I haven't seen the resolution, number
I
one.
believe it was given to you some time ago, and when Miss Gibbs came to us.
A year ago, originally.
Well, originally, yeah, but I'm just saying, but
Some-
I will read the resolution, we can do what we want, you know, by motion, but the resolution to eliminate straight party vote, whereas Rhode Island converted to an up-to-date optical election system a decade ago, but retained the straight party vote option, and whereas retention of the straight party vote option results in confusion at the polls and undervotes for local candidates, especially in cases of nonpartisan elections, and whereas the straight party option discourages qualified individuals to seek elected office, and whereas elimination of the straight party vote option would cause no harm and would contribute to increased voter participation in the election process, and whereas Rhode Island needs to join its neighboring states in the Northeast in modernizing its voting practices by eliminating the straight party option, and therefore be it resolved, Rhode Island needs to encourage more candidates to run for office to give the electorate more choices in elections by requiring voting for the individual, not the party, and be it further resolved that the Tiverton Town Council supports the repeal of the straight party vote option on the ballot in future elections and will mail this resolution to its Rhode Island General Assembly representatives and senators and to the Speaker of the Rhode Island House of Representatives and President of the Rhode Island Senate. Be adopted by the Tiverton Town Council on.
May I have one more word?
One more.
Okay. Again, we see, and of course, we've heard, this is not an anti-party type of thing, but of course, I think some of us know better. But even at the bottom of your resolution, in one, you vote the individual and not the party, forgetting that, and remember, I'm not talking about Tiverton, I'm talking about all over the state, where a number of the communities have party ballots. There seems to be an oversight of the fact that the person on the ballot in that sort of situation is also there with some blessing, at least from the party. And I think it really stretches things. I think it's really overarching for the towns, the places of least population, to go and try to put this on communities upstate who have the bulk of the population. Check it out,
Okay.
please, as to where it's coming from.
We've had a request to move the question.
Okay.
It's, okay,
Can we speak on the question here?
yes. Well, I mean, there isn't a motion to adopt, so I guess.
Well,
until-
I will make a motion
Okay,
to adopt the resolution as presented.
And I'll second the motion.
okay.
Okay,
Now,
on the question.
okay, and then
Let me
we'll
say
allow
this.
debate here and then.
First of all, you read this, you read the proposed action document there. There is at least one item in there that I don't agree with, but that's neither here nor there. What I would like to say is that it's not too many years ago that we had partisan political elections in this town. You had the Democrats running against the Republicans running against the Democrats, and you had a few who ran on an independent ticket. In those days, we had splits in this town. because of differences of opinion on the issue being discussed by the two parties. But there was at least an opportunity, and it was taken advantage of on occasion, where the two parties would get together and compromise or come up with a solution. Well, we thought we were doing the right thing when we went nonpartisan. And instead of having political division in town, we now have what I think is called emotional division. And it's a kind of division that is very difficult to work with. As a matter of fact, I'm in favor, and I'm going to propose this later on when we're looking at questions for amendments to our charter. You know, I think we should go back to political politics. I think we should have independents, Democrats, and Republicans run on their party ticket. Then you have problems which I think are easier to resolve because they're factual more or less than it is nonpartisan where they're very emotional, and the town has suffered a tremendous division. I'm against the resolution. I'm going to vote against sending the resolution, and I'm expressing my feelings that partisan elections did more for this town than nonpartisan elections.
If I can just briefly explain my vote, I join with all of the comments that have already been made by Mr. Boland, but I'll add an additional thought, and that is you can still vote straight party. And I see no reason at all why a state legislature should encourage people to go in and vote for candidates when they don't even have to read their names. There just has to be something inherently wrong in trying to encourage a stupid electorate. And that's basically what I think you're doing with the straight party vote, because you can always vote straight party. If all you want are Republicans, vote all Republicans. If you want only Democrats, vote all Democrats. But to go in there and just pull down one lever and vote for a crowd of people you couldn't identify, you've never read their names, wouldn't even know that they were candidates, there is something wrong with that,
Mr. Lockhart thinks that doesn't work at all.
He's addressing completely different issues. This issue,
No,
by the way, has
no,
been
he
taken up
isn't.
by a number of courts in a number of states, and the very arguments you've made, Mr. Moran, have always been rejected.
When you go to vote,
No, they
you
have
tell the
not,
difference
sir.
between the Democrats and Republicans.
I'd like to see you show me just one time that they've been rejected. And I think you're denigrating a lot of the people who go into the ballot box.
No, I'm not. I'm simply saying that the legislature
Okay.
should not encourage people to go in
I don't think we-
without
We have
requiring
closed,
them to
we have
read a
It's an
closed,
option.
we have closed the discussion.
Civilization
Public
is
and
the
taken
maximization
taken
of
this
them.
up amongst the council. Anyone else on the council
Civilization
wishing
is
to
the
be heard?
maximization of options, and having that option on the ballot is good.
Charlie?
I think in my view, you know, when you look back, and Charlie has mentioned it, and I'm not mentioning it to spark any more debate, but, you know, when you look back on those elections, those national elections of 2004 and 2008, you know, when they had electronic voting in a lot of those different states, I think it disenfranchises the people even more, because there could be so much that could go wrong. There is no paper trail with any of those electronic type of voting processes. However, this is probably one of those first process that would almost open the gateway for the electronic voting, and with this one lever ballot. As Mr. Lambert said, that people just don't read who they're voting for and would never ever know who they voted for. And I just think that's a crime to me, because if you're going to take our most precious liberty and to go in and vote, you should at least know who you're voting for. It should be the simplest form of a ballot possible, so that people can certainly understand what they're voting for, and the least complicated it is, the better off for everybody. So I have to say that I'm going to be in favor of this resolution, just for the sake, in my mind, that it's making it that much more simple. Anybody can vote the way they want to vote, and it's not going to be an automatic vote that people will just go in and vote.
Would you be interested in knowing that one of the great champions of liberty, although he was a conservative, the second Mr. Justice Harlan, said that this is why you push freedom of political association. He's just one of them, believe me. Not, you know,
Is there anybody else here wishing
You
to be
can't,
heard? If not, we're going
you
to call
can't
for
be
the vote
taking
on this. We have a motion and a second
rights
to
away.
adopt the resolution. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-1. Moving on, new business. David Butel, CRMC Aquacultural Coordinator, brief discussion, a description of potential aquacultural farm in Nanaquacket Pond, an application for a farm at Fogland Cove.
Thank you. Can everybody hear? The CRMC has two aquaculture applications in front of it at the moment. One is more complicated than the other, and I'll do the easier one first. The first one is at Fogland Cove. It is what we call a commercial viability application. It is for 1,000 square feet. It's an administrative application, so it does not go out to full review. However, we decided to work with the town administrator, harbor master, and planner to determine whether this location was appropriate. What we determined from that meeting was that for that type of aquaculture, that location was inappropriate, and the applicant is working to determine a different location for that one. So that's really on hold now from the CRMC end. The larger application is one in Nanaquacket Pond for 3 acres of oyster aquaculture in the southwest portion of the pond. And this would be for floating aquaculture with a series of lines that would hold bags of oysters in it that would float at the surface, which is the area of the water column that has the most food, so the oysters grow the quickest. The applicant has stated in their operations plan that the oysters will be removed for the winter, and they will only be in the pond on that 3-acre site for the growing season, which is basically April to November. We held a preliminary determination meeting here in March, and the applicant, it was determined at that meeting that the original location was inappropriate, and when the applicant resubmitted, it was for a modified location based on the information that came out of the preliminary determination meeting held here. After the CRMC review, the initial review, we put it out to 30-day public notice, and there's a whole series of occurrences that happen during that 30 days. The 30-day notice ends, I think, June 14th, and we will take written comment until then. During that time, the Rhode Island Marine Fisheries Council Shellfish Advisory Panel will review the application and give written comments. Rhode Island DEM Fish and Wildlife and Water Resources will all provide written comments during or at the end of that 30-day comment period. The reason I came here tonight was at request from the town administrator to give you an update as to the process and answer any questions that you may have.
Are you from the CRMC?
Yes, I am the aquaculture coordinator for CRMC.
I actually had one question. I think I know the answer. Why are the poor oysters taken out of the water from December to March?
The oysters don't feed during that time, and the cold water at the top, if it should turn to ice, would kill them. So it's to reduce mortality.
Is there going to be some way to prevent the water surfers and those that use Nanaquacket Pond from entering into this area?
It will just be marked off with buoys saying that it is a CRMC approved aquaculture farm, if it's approved.
will there be water taxes as opposed to real estate taxes payable by the company that does this in Nanaquacket Pond?
There is a lease fee. Yes, there's an annual lease fee, and there's a...
To the state.
To the state.
To the
So
town.
nothing to the, what's
Nothing
the
to the
benefit,
town.
what's the benefit to the town of allowing, these things to take over a recreational area and take 3, whatever number of acres it is, away from the recreational use of that facility?
What is the benefit to the town?
Yeah.
A supply of seafood.
Oh, give it a break. They're going to give the
Ask me
oysters
the last
away.
time I ate an oyster.
When you say the application had been revised, how was it revised?
The
The area?
The area was changed from the original location, which was in the southeast portion of the pond, to a location in the southwest portion of the pond.
Has there been a public hearing on this matter? I know you've asked for comments orally or in writing, but have you had a public hearing?
The public hearing was the preliminary determination meeting. Then we have the 30-day comment period. And then if the application gets to the council itself, that will be a public hearing.
Where was the public hearing held? Was it over in Warwick?
No.
The preliminary determination meeting was held here, in this room, in March.
Was the area, you, I think, mentioned that there were 3 acres of Nanaquacket Pond in the original submission?
Correct.
Are there still 3 acres of Nanaquacket Pond in the revised submission?
Yes.
That's quite a sizable area, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, it depends on your perspective.
Well, I happen to have a boat that goes down around that area, and that's a sizable area to spin off.
Now, Mr. President, if I understand correctly, what's proposed is some aquaculture work for the benefit of a couple people be instituted in 2 areas, and I'm including the Fogland Cove, even though you said that's pushed aside for the moment, that are both very popular recreation areas. So this sounds to me sort of like the old argument about shoreline access. We're going to restrict part of the water to a very specific use and exclude that water from everybody else using it. Is that a fair characterization?
For that 3 acres, yes, that's a fair characterization.
Well, looking at the map for Fogline Cove, it was also in an area where there's windsurfers, boaters, swimmers. I can't imagine it would be too much fun to windsurf or swim around one of these areas.
You have a map of
So
this
it
area.
seems that what we're doing is
Fogland Cove.
we're eliminating areas for recreation
Yeah,
purposes.
doesn't-
So we're denying access to a large
See, I
group of
don't-
people for the benefit of a small group of people.
There's another.
Okay, let
That's
me-
an opinion that I've heard.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
The Fogland Cove application is not for 3 acres, it's for 1,000 square feet.
I
Okay, so
understand.
it's about the size of the
I drew
room.
that from the map that was considered as small.
And it's not
Looking-
surface aquaculture, it is bottom aquaculture.
On this map, could you delineate the area we're talking about?
Can I come forward?
Yes, please do.
You can mark it on that one.
I think it's that square. This is that square that you got down the bottom here?
Right down
That
here.
square. This, right here. This here.
Good.
Right there. It didn't come through very well on the copy. May I draw?
Yes.
Is that square in the middle?
No, I don't have the square.
Yeah, right there.
Oh, yeah, that, okay, this is an area that has,
Excuse me, may I say something? My name is
Yeah.
Jackie May. Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Louise, can I see where it is?
Does
Yes.
anybody else need to be shown where it is?
Yeah, I would like to, if you'd mark mine. You can use it.
No, I had seen it. but I'm looking at this here. It's 400 feet by 300 feet.
It's out in the middle of the pond, it isn't near the shoreline.
If you were boating, you would be coming in the inland.
Yeah, look at,
Yeah, I mean, it's very close to that.
Yes.
My name is Jackie May. I founded the Nanaquacket Neighborhood Association in response to the first application that would have been directly in our backyard and would have taken away access to our moorings, riparian rights, that type of thing. And so myself and my neighbors did come to the meetings of the Harbor Commission in March. We came to 4 meetings and the hearing. Then the applicants reapplied, received that notification May 14th that started the 30-day public notice. And I thought, Mr. Butel, that by today, the 4 buoys to mark the GPS coordinates on this map were supposed to be put into the pond and then confirmed. Was that not part of the plan?
As I understood it, the buoys were to be placed over the weekend, and
This weekend.
I am going tomorrow to check.
So they should be there by now, and today's Monday, so they should have been put in this week, last weekend?
I requested that they be put in. When I get there tomorrow, I'm going to check to see if they're there.
Okay. We have several issues that we'd like to bring up. Safety, water quality, commercial and recreational cohoggers, riparian rights. It would restrict public use. It would be unsightly, and I believe that it will affect property values in a negative way. I'm actually a real estate agent. There's not much historic information to prove that, but if someone's paying for waterfront property and paying the taxes to do so, and then these however many hundreds of buoys and gear and line are allowed to be there, on the surface, I don't think it's going to be very beautiful, and not only will it disrupt recreational use, there could be gear that gets loose in a storm. That's a safety issue, and who's going to manage that? There could be oyster shells that wash up on the beach. That's a liability for somebody. Anyways, so we have formed the Nanaquacket Neighborhood Association specifically to be informed by the CRMC as to these oyster applications specifically in Nanaquacket Pond, as we are residents of the pond. And I think that it affects not just pond residents, but Tiverton residents that have been using the pond for recreation and cohogging. And we think that the coordinates of this box that they've drawn here, it's somewhat a poor rendering, not terribly accurate. We think that we have figured out where it's going to be according to the GPS coordinates on this piece of paper of the application. And if I may approach, it seems to not be, it seems to be extremely close to the shoreline, and they do need to have a minimum of 2 feet at mean low tide in order to maintain the, because it's very shallow back there. And it would be 300 by 400 feet.
I saw the size of it.
In fact, shallow enough, or a child could walk into it. And we want to know who would be liable for that if somebody, a child, I mean, people who operate boats are responsible to navigate their boats, and they should know where these places are on the charts. But a child doesn't know. So what do we do about that? And who's liable?
I'm not sure, because, you know, we're getting presented this tonight and told that somebody wants to put an oyster farm in a body of water,
Right.
you know, which lies within the geographic area of Tiverton, but I guess the water rights belong to CRMC, and they can kind of give them away and do what they want with them per application. I'm seeing somebody paid a $50 application and going to get an area that's 400 by 300 with no benefit to the town and a benefit, you know, to the state of Rhode Island in some way at CRMC.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm a little miffed by this situation also, because I see this as that being a treasure to the residents,
It is a
you know,
treasure.
of this town, and also to anybody who boats in the state to be able to come in there. And it is a high activity level in that area in the summertime. Of course, you know, they're gonna pull their nets out in December when nobody uses it,
Yeah.
you know, and you get free access again to a body of water that, you know, clearly lies.
But can
Mr.
I just
Mr.
ask you,
President.
I have a question, I'm sorry. This is a matter that is under the exclusive jurisdiction of the CRMC by state law. That is correct?
Almost 100%.
Well, what is are you here tonight to ask the council for a vote on this, or what are we doing with this?
That's a great question. The request of me was to come here and answer your questions, and that was the only request of me for tonight. So if you want to vote on it, go ahead and vote on it. What I would like to receive from you all is written comments. And they will go into the review process and be weighted heavily because it is coming from the town.
Yeah, Mr. President, if I may, you know, I don't think there's anybody who's more business pro than I am. But this type of business is not a benefit to the town of Tiverton. We're looking for businesses that are going to bring growth into the town, bring financial restitution to the town. This does nothing. And, you know, whether the CRMC has control over Nanaquacket Pond or not, it is part of Tiverton. It's our waterway. And I understand the people who live along there. If I lived there, I would not want to be staring at a buoy, according to this, that will go every 50 feet.
Minefield.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it does nothing.
400 by 300.
Yeah, and it does nothing. It does nothing to benefit the town. It does nothing to benefit or beautify Nanaquacket Pond. And, you know, when you said, you know, it's going to help shellfish, I noticed one of the companies in Boston. Do you think those oysters are going to be sold here in Tiverton? I think not. And do you think the benefit for those oysters are going to be in Tiverton? I think not.
And if I can follow up on Ed's comments, my question would be, has there been any economic study at all? I don't see any economic benefit at all. I can't even figure out really why you'd have any substantial employment for an activity like this, at least the activity that's being proposed for Nanaquacket Pond. Has there been any study to see what economic benefit we'll have from this? How many employees would be affected? How much money we can expect in taxes? Anything of that sort?
For the whole state, there are...
Well, no, just Nanaquacket. I mean, is there any
Just Tiverton.
economic benefit at all to Tiverton from having a project like this?
Only if your applicant is a resident of Tiverton.
Well, then looking at it statewide, I mean, are we offering employment to any substantial number of people? Are we getting any tax benefits out of this?
There will be opportunities for employment. I can't say how many people.
2.
According to the lease agreement, it says 1 or 2 workers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
My question is, the first application is no longer null and void, because that has one application number. Then on the second one, there is a second application number. Are we still talking about the same body of water, the same applicants, all of the above being the same area? You just have 2 different numbers for file numbers, so that's what's confused me.
The first file number was for the preliminary determination application.
Okay, so
The second file number is for the full lease application.
All right, so your review, which you wrote up, pertained to the first one, so that's no longer acceptable, as you stated that you thought everybody was in favor of it, which is wrong. So I want to make sure that's all passed. Nobody is in favor of this new application. So we're all working on a new application number. The second question I have is, these oysters will be coming out of the water, and according to their description of the lease, they're going to be put in refrigerated storage units on the shore down there in that Delano Island. Is that a planning board issue, a zoning board issue? Can you just move these refrigerated trucks on that land and that's okay?
I don't know whose land it is.
I know, that's what I'm trying to get at,
At
is
least
that,
on
I mean,
Jim's
it's
property,
every
whoever
area,
Jim may be.
every area down there is zoned R80, which is residential. Can you then add this type of a business to a residential area like that?
I would say no.
Questions for the zoning department?
That's what I'm saying. So I can ask those questions without you guys, you
Yes.
could not approve this without questioning those other areas, correct? Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that I am vehemently opposed to this. I think it is not a benefit to the town of Tiverton. It does absolutely nothing.
And I can't understand why between here and Boston, or even in Bristol for that matter, since one of the applicants is from Bristol, that they can't do the same thing in one of the harbors over there in Bristol.
You know,
Everyone likes to defer the opportunities to somebody else's place. I have
It's not
learned
really,
that.
it's not really deferring the opportunities to somebody else's place. When you talk about an opportunity, I want you to tell me what the opportunity for Tiverton is. It's a business person who wants to take a body of water that's currently being used for one purpose and disturb that purpose in that body of water, and the people that he disrupts from using that for that purpose get nothing for it. Which means the people who own land down there, the people who are paying to be there, and the right to be on the water and the access to the water and the use of the water, you're taking away an area, and I just envision an area 400 feet by 300 feet. And I look at that, and I'm looking at, the room we're in, what's that, 4 times bigger than this, 5 times bigger than this? I'm looking at that much area in that which is relatively a small pond being taken away, and not only taken away, it's going to have, there's going to be people who unaware what that buoy's all about. There's going to be boats going into that. There's going to be accidents happen down there. There's going to be more problems that we're going to have to take care of. In Tiverton, they're going to cost the town of Tiverton to watch what's going on down there and respond every time something goes wrong down there. It isn't CRMC that's going to send somebody over here every time there's a problem and pay the money. It's going to come out of our pocket. And our residents get absolutely no benefit from it. Oh, I mean, they're not going to, when they go to, if they went to the market and bought the oyster, if they're not getting a break on the oyster because it was grown in Tiverton. So it's not even a benefit there. But, and these are not local residents. These are not people. And as it's been said, we're looking for opportunities that are going to, enhance opportunities for people in this town. 1 or 2 employees, that's a lot of area to take up in a waterway that's really used. If you came down here in the summertime and sat around down there at Evelyn's or any place like that and watched how much use that pond has, I don't think you'd approve anything to take place that would take that much of that pond away.
I wonder, our written comments, if the written comments have to be done, our next meeting is the 14th. I think we should prepare a written comment opposing this application. And I'll make a motion to that effect.
And I will second it.
This may have been more than you bargained for, but once you started,
This is definitely not more than I bargained for. This is why I came. was
Okay, that's
To answer
fine.
your questions.
I will make-
And you can be as passionate as you like. I will.
And our comments will be, our comments will be as passionate when relayed to your whole body, because this is something, if somebody told me there was a bunch of docks sitting out there and somebody wanted to put nets under those docks and do this farming you were talking about, which would be a secondary use to something that's already there, I'd probably be sitting there saying, what a wonderful idea, let somebody try to do that. But this is in an open body of water. This takes away from the use of that. It's not a secondary use. I have something going on, I can do something else. And I think, that wouldn't be good there because there might be some gasoline from them engines of those boats that park there that would affect this. So let me put it in a nice fresh body of water. Let me put it in a body of water that's clean, pristine, and let's do it there.
I'd like
Can I
to,
ask you just a question? You being Coastal Resources Management Council, how could you possibly think that this is what anyone in this town would want in that body of water? We depend on your agency to protect our waters. I don't understand what thinking this is behind this venture and what's in it for who.
There is a process for aquaculture to be conducted and reviewed. I have not put anything, Coastal has not put anything in this pond. We are in the process of reviewing the application. Hence, I am here asking for information from you, for written comments from you, and I will take those comments and include them in the review. Nothing has been done in terms of giving anybody's body of water away. So, you can be as passionate as you want and as curt with me as you want, but we have not done this. We are only reviewing the application at the moment.
You stated earlier that they were supposed to put buoys in the pond, per the GPS location over the weekend. Well, it sure seems to me like things are a little further than what you're explaining to me if you're already telling somebody to go to the expense of putting buoys out there and have them marked by GPS location, so that people can see what the site is. Is that what the purpose is, to see, so we see how big it is?
There are multi-purposes here. One is so that everyone can see how big it is. Two is so that I can come and check and make sure that the location that they said is marked out correctly. Three is I need to survey that location to see what native product is there. If the native product is there at a density of 10 per meter squared, the whole application is refused immediately.
So you're telling me if there's good quahog bed under that, they can't have that?
That's correct.
On top?
That's correct.
I am going to make a motion, we can bring this to a halt, that
Could I
the
speak?
town council,
Yeah, you can speak after the motion's made, Mr. Hart.
okay, I will make a motion that the town council go on record to oppose the use of Anaquacket Pond for this purpose, as it is an appropriation of the use for an individual to the detriment of other users of the pond.
And I will second that.
Madam Counselor, could I ask you to, even though Fogling Cove is withdrawn for the moment,
include it.
let's include it, because everything we've said about Nanaquacket is also
Goes for
true
Fogland Cove
about
also.
Fogland.
I will be glad to include it.
Thank you.
And I will continue to second it.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Hart.
You seem to be hearing just one side of the whole thing. I think tonight, there's no one here to talk on the benefits of oysters. There used to be a lot of oysters and scallops in Nanaquacket Pond, in Nonquit Pond, the south end of it. Many people made their part of their living years ago with scallops and oysters. The scallops and oysters have been overfished for years. They've been wiped out by overfishing. There's no scallops or oysters left to regenerate the eggs and things to produce new oysters. This last fall, I visited Wellsfleet. They have a oyster festival down there. You indicate the benefits of the oyster farming, just go down and ask Wellfleet. They must be making millions and millions of dollars. There was thousands of people at their oyster festival last year. The last fall also, I involved with the Eastern Rhode Island Conservation District. We visited an oyster farm over on Melville, approximately 2 acres. There's a Peter Brown that's operating that farm there. We also have a farm just over the line into Little Compton that's been operating for at least 5 years. They sell oysters. This one individual, Peter Melanson, he sells oysters around this area to Newport restaurants, to Westport restaurants. Peter Brown, he sells oysters up into Boston. The USDA Conservation Service is very involved with promoting, trying to get oysters back into this area. These small oyster farms bring in seed. These people that are against it, some of them, we would then see some oysters that do escape into the surrounding areas. They would probably be able to harvest some wild oysters in Nanaquacket Pond in the future. If you get some farms here and there that are going to have oysters that's laying eggs to produce new oysters. But there's got to be a source of oysters in order to get any wild oysters at this point. There's just none hardly left. Last year, in 2008, the National Conservation awarded $792,000 to 8 Rhode Island oyster farms. $792,000. That's a little bit of money. This year, they have 13 oyster farmers applying for more grants. These grants are given for environmental improvement programs. These oyster farms, they're providing some of these farmers with outboards that do not pollute. They're overseeing the bags and things that they put them in to grow these oysters. So I'll read here a little bit more. In 2009, additional funding was sought, a total of 13 growers to produce approximately 24 million oysters over the next 3 years. This year alone, an estimated 8.9 million oysters were grown for restoration projects. Last week, half of the participating farmers obtained 1,300 bags of oyster seed on shells and hatcheries, from hatcheries. Down in Wellfleet, they have built beds of clam shells for the oysters to sit on. These are harvested by not farmers, but people that are dragging. They get permits to drag these beds. So I think the oyster farmers that are here, oyster people here are shell fishermen. It would benefit them probably in the long run. They may not realize it at this point, but it could be a benefit on how much money they'd make from oysters around the area. The University of Rhode Island is working on developing methods and studying the production of oysters and clams and scallops. Roger Williams has projects. They have oyster farms or beds or things over just off north of the Mount Hope Bridge. I don't know, probably nobody even knows they're there. But they're doing experiments on growing oysters over there. The Nature Conservancy is involved in these farms and to see that they're good for the environment. Ocean State Agricultural Association, the Coastal Resource Management, the University of Rhode Island, DEM, and the aquaculture industry are all involved in getting these farms. And I think that we have a program next Friday night on economic development in Tiverton and this area. And before you turn this down completely, take a second look at it and see what the benefits are. And if any of you are interested, I think I can get a ride for you to see some of these oysters, especially the one over near Melville, if you'd like to go out and see what actually oyster farming is.
Dick, I don't have a problem with oyster farming. I just think they're putting it in the wrong location. And I think our discussion here is about where they want to put it. There has to be some other bodies of water that are a lot less used. You know what the problem is? It's a nice protected area, so somebody wants to take what's a nice protected area. Here we got a pond. You don't have to worry about storms blowing this stuff around and the extra work you might have to do if it was in an area that wasn't so protected. So we take an area that its same protection provides for a nice place for recreational boating and for all those people who live around there to be able to use, and we're going to take that away from them.
Well, we maybe give them oysters to eat.
I think the trade-off, I think the trade-off is, I think we already have.
Yeah, I
motion.
mean, isn't the answer to this, with the tension, is that there are areas in Rhode Island that are appropriate for oyster farming.
We have good water from.
But it's not the basin, it's not Nantucket, and I think that's the only
It may be
issue.
down south of, on the west side of Nantucket, all the way to the Little Compton line is, I think, ideal water quality especially.
It is.
For growing oysters or scallops and so forth. and we should be open to this possibility.
I think we are open to the possibility. It's just where they're proposing this one. I think that's the key here.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's saying we don't want to see this kind of endeavor. We just don't want to, well, we want to see it in a place where it doesn't affect what currently takes place.
Okay.
I mean, we're replacing something with something else, and it's a detriment, in our eyes anyway,
Yeah,
at this point.
But it could improve the quality of our water and coastline. Really, it could upgrade it.
Dan Alcock, Leonard Drive. I want to thank the previous speaker for making his comments, but as Mr. Boland pointed out, this is not a seeding program, it's not educational, it's not for study purposes, it's for commercial purposes that will benefit just a few people to the detriment of the town, as has been stated previously. Mr. Butel, thank you for coming today, and I know you're here to answer some questions. My question for you is, has this program been rolled out in any similar type of water body where there is heavy recreational use within the state? And, would there be any thought to doing this if it were in Warwick or in Providence or in Bristol, as had been mentioned previously? Thank you.
Do you want to answer to your question?
Yes.
There are water bodies that farms have been rolled out and relocated to different water bodies.
But have any of them been in a recreational area such as the pond?
Yes.
Okay.
There are some in, there are currently active farms in Innigrip Pond, Potter's Pond, Point Judith Pond, and Winnapogue Ponds. And in Block Island in Trim's Pond and Harbor Pond.
And what are the size of those units?
The largest farm in Point Judith Pond is 20 acres, and the smallest smallest commercial farm is 1 acre.
And the one in Point Judith, was that previously a recreational area, or was that an area that was lightly traversed by either commercial fishermen or recreational boaters?
It was an area that was traversed and continues to be traversed because it is bottom aquaculture, so that the applicant really only has control over the bottom, not the water column. That's one of the differences in this application, is that they are asking for surface aquaculture as opposed to bottom aquaculture.
Okay, so if I could just kind of tighten up my question then, are there any other instances of the surface aquaculture that were placed in a previously heavily traversed recreational area or commercial fishing area?
Yes, on Block Island.
Okay.
In Trim's Pond.
Alrighty. And, how large is that one?
That one is 3 acres, and it's 3.3 acres now.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Ernie Pooler, Nanaquacket Pond, Nanaquacket Road, excuse me. A couple of things that have not been brought out, okay? We let 1 in, we can let 3 in, because we can cover 10.4 acres on the pond. So either we go all or nothing, because that's what's going to happen. Okay? Now, like she mentioned, she takes her boat down to that end of the pond. I happened to speak to Mrs. Perini, who lives probably, based on the GPS coordinates, low tide mark, about 50 feet from the point where one of those buoys should be based on his coordinates. Okay? She has small kids. She has dogs. Unfortunately, she's 8.5 months pregnant, and she couldn't be here tonight, but she wanted me to express her displeasure with the potential location, number 1. The applicant, Mr. Sebring, is in cahoots with Mr. Duckett, and you notice that it's not in front of his house. It's on the other side of the pond. So I wanted to bring that up as well, okay? That area of the pond is a big turning basin. That's where everybody, all the skiers, and it's not just about skiers, I understand that, okay? At any given time, there's 4 or 5 quahoggers drifting their way down into that area fishing. And I'm sure there's some of them here tonight, okay? They're gonna have problems now because their area of fishing is gonna be restricted. We have to say no to Nanaquacket Pond. Thank you.
you doing? I've held the co-op license for about 20 years. I just gave it up as I retired now. And any new seeds that set of cohogs happens down at that end of the pond, the south end of the pond. Any new set of new seeds always end up down there. Nanaquacket Pond is pretty scarce for cohogs right now. We need that end of the pond for cohogs. If out of the whole pond, the only place you can go with any seed is down that end. All the rest of it is big cohogs. So you can, take that, as far as where you're going to set this is going to be right in the area where the new seed always end up every spring. Okay?
Alec Cody's Wampanoag Lane. I don't know how many people have been around with good hurricane scare, but any boat that can fit under that bridge, they're all headed to the south end of that pond. And they're all anchored down there because that's soft bottom down there if they should drag their anchor. And I've seen it many a time where it's been boat after boat down there. Thank you.
I just have one more question. My name is Carl Sawako. I reside at 40 Delano's Island. There was one thing that came to mind. Unfortunately, I just got a very late call and got involved at this in the 11th hour, and I apologize for that. It's kind of sad to see that the decision of this magnitude rests on the profitability of two individuals, and much of the decision-making process is out of the hands of the town of Tiverton. That's pretty sad to see that. Unfortunately, that be it as it may, one of the things I do in another town is I represent public safety as coordinating emergency management for municipal authorities. And one of the things that I have noticed as being a resident of Nanaquacket Pond is that young children swim in that pond. Many of the residents who are here tonight have grandchildren and various different people that come in to visit them over the course of the summer. One thing I've noticed over my 20-year tenure in Nanaquacket Pond is that during a time of large infestation of wild oysters, these oysters present themselves on the beaches very close to the shore. They cling to the rocks and they stand up vertically. Unfortunately, when they're in their smallest form, they pose the greatest hazard to swimmers and young children. We've actually sent out a young child in an ambulance during that time to the hospital because even though the child had sneakers and socks and everything else, as you wade through Nanaquacket Pond, you probably will notice that it's very muddy. And being muddy, children have a tendency to kind of lose their bearing and they fall over a little bit in the water close to the shore. When they do that, they land right on these shells. And if any of you knew the construction of an oyster shell, it basically represents a razor blade standing vertically in the water. As a public safety person, I have a real serious, if these were to remain encapsulated for the duration of time and none of them could escape and seed themselves on the shores, we had a serious incident about 10 years ago with these oysters really overpopulating the water. So quahogs and things like that have been a natural habitat for Nanaquacket Pond. Commercial fishermen go in there. The town benefits, the residents benefit. But really, we take boaters and we take people that spend their time on the water casually and push them out of the pond into Tiverton Channel. That becomes another danger. We want boaters and recreational people to remain in Nanaquacket Pond where it's safe for them to water ski, where it's safe for them to swim. You can't do that out in Tiverton Channel, and you can't do that if we push them out to the further end of the pond. That's a second consideration that I'm not so sure CRMC may have taken into consideration. Be it as it may, I really respect the town of Tiverton and the fact that they have eased the restrictions of people living on the waterfront to be able to enjoy the use of their buildings. They eased the building codes to some degree so that people were able to renovate trailers and shacks that were beginning to deteriorate so that they could enjoy the pleasure of that waterfront property that they so deserve. And again, I accolade the town in its initial efforts to make sure that the citizens of Tiverton are protected, and I further want to make sure that public safety is taken into consideration here, and that should these oyster beds go out of control and begin to populate on the shores, and they're not harvested correctly or monitored correctly, they pose a serious, serious hazard to swimmers, to boaters, to wildlife, vegetation, anything that resides. Thank you very much for your consideration.
We have a motion and a second on the floor to strongly word a document opposing the placement of these oyster farms in both Nanaquacket Pond and Fogland Cove. So at this time, we'll vote on that motion. All those in favor of Mr. Durfee's motion? It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. will I get a letter from you,
You
or
most-
how will I get the
Certainly
letter?
will.
You will most definitely get a letter from this council.
Okay. May I have one final word?
Yes.
And that is that it seems to me that the attitude is that CRMC is leasing this bottom. CRMC is reviewing the application for this lease. And part of the review is to mark the lease so that I can go check it and see what's in it and do a whole bunch of steps so that the attitude that you are not being included is a misperception, because you all are being included, everyone in this room is being included in the review process. So I hope that you all appreciate that you have not been excluded.
We understand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I wish that everyone here understands that you should also write to CRMC in this matter and tell them why you are opposed to that, so that we can have as much information on file to the opposition of this and those bodies of water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Town Administrator, request permission to advertise for Police Department hire list.
Request permission from the council to advertise for the establishment of a list for the police department, and we're doing it at this point because our list has been, outdated or is outdated.
Can we keep it down so we can continue to conduct the meeting? Thank you.
And the council approved at its last meeting advertisement for the fire department. We'd also like to take advantage of the same advertisement to save on some advertising dollars. And we do have some policemen that have been inquiring about their retirement benefits. So we expect that very shortly there will be at least one retirement. And we need to be in a position, if possible, for the next police academy in the event that we are able to obtain a space there.
Okay, I make a motion that the town administrator go forth and advertise in conjunction with the advertisement for the fire department for positions of police officers for the town of Tiverton.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Question. Go ahead, please. Well, yeah, I want to ask how this procedure works. Well, where do the applications go? How are they treated? And what part does the personnel board play in this whole process? Is what I'd like to know.
Mr. Costa, after the application, the advertisement sent out, applications are completed by all the applicants, and then the Personnel Board will ultimately interview whomever's left.
What happens between their application and the ultimately is what I'm interested in. Where do the applications go? Do they go to the police
No,
department?
they first start off with the Personnel Board, then they'll be delivered to the police department.
Delivered to the clerk.
Subsequently,
They go to the personnel board?
We hand them to the personnel board.
Okay.
there'll be a testing procedure, whether it be physical or written exam, all different steps to establish a credible list, and keeping in mind that we have to have the same criteria as Police Academy for physical agility.
Understood. I was chairman of the personnel board for about 25 years, so I know the gimmicks. But what would happen whenever let's not get into it. I'm satisfied with the process.
Okay.
In other words, I'm happy with the process.
There is a written exam, there is a physical agility test, and through a process of elimination and scoring,
It is roasting hot.
a list is established.
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. And the next three items involve the wastewater management commission, and I'm recusing myself at this time.
I have a question of the town solicitor. I know that in the past, anything to do with the sewage, being a user, should I recuse myself also?
No.
Consider that most people here are not users of it.
No, but you're still, you're a sewer user along with many other sewer users. You're of a large class of people such that it would not be something, it doesn't affect you, it's not a significant item with that, as opposed to, Country View as far as a particular real estate area, even though there are a lot of people who live there, that's a particular thing that would affect you significantly personally. You'll be just incidentally affected here, so you would not need to recuse yourself.
Thank you.
Okay, this next item on the agenda is from Mr. Leroy Kendricks of the Wastewater Management Commission Chairman for the 2011 State Revolving Fund submittals, proposed projects for RIDEM project priority list. Mr. Kendricks?
Yeah, there are two items that we're recommending this year. One would be the Community Septic System Loan Program. Traditionally, we're given money, loan money in $300,000 chunks, and we loan it out to people in town at a 2% interest rate when they need to upgrade or replace their septic systems. And this money is administered by Community Church House, Rhode Island Housing, and basically we've been doing this for several years. And then the second one is the sewer tie-in program. Again, it's a loan program where people need money to tie into the existing sewer system. This loan program is available for that.
It is in effect you applying for things that we would normally call grants. Technically, they
This
may
is not a
call
grant,
something else.
it's a loan. The money is loaned or given to the town to fund this loan program, and the money is paid back. The town
Okay.
merely guarantees the loan, is guarantor of the loan.
We have used up our, this loan program in the past, Mr. Kendricks?
Yes.
So we're just reapplying for...
We're just reapplying. This is probably the third or fourth year that
Now, do you need to vote on this, or is this just informing us?
usually, I think you vote on this every year, and we turn this into RIDEM.
Then I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed submission by the wastewater
Management
Commission.
Commission. I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Madam President, I have one question now. Who makes the final decision on the loan application? Is that at the state level?
Rhode Island Housing makes the preliminary decision unless the resident is out of eligibility, and then they can appeal to the Wastewater Management Commission, where we would make a recommendation.
But primarily, it's state
Rhode Island
money
Housing.
approved by a
Correct.
state agency.
Correct.
We're just a pass-through, in a sense.
More or less, yes.
Yep, thank you.
Who probably also collects the interest on the loans and so forth.
That is correct.
That's the way the state operates.
Yes. They loan the money. So
Whose money is it? It's not the state's, it's my money and your money.
that's correct.
But
Any other questions or comments? Okay, with that being said, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next item is Mr. Leroy Kendricks, Wastewater Management Chairman. Request to give C&E Engineering a change of order to perform additional design in the Shove Street area.
Yes, the council several months ago approved us to award C&E Engineers a design contract to do two things. One was to do some preliminary engineering of that area for sewer and pump station build-out, and to design a section of sewer. Well, during the, after we got the results of the investigation, there was a better solution to put sewers in and also to get rid of the Ponta pump station and create a gravity situation. So the design would involve the elimination of the Ponta pump station. So this is extra design work to do that design, and this change order is the additional funds that we require to do the additional design to get rid of that pump station.
I'll make a motion that we approve the change order as requested by the wastewater commission.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any questions?
The only thing we haven't discussed at all is funding. Who's,
The fund, we have the funds for this. We're not
You do?
requesting any additional funds.
okay. Big fund, CDBG.
Yeah, CDBG funds.
Very good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Okay, it's unanimous.
There's got to be a charge for 3 items on the agenda.
And lastly, is Leroy Kendricks, wastewater management chairman, request approval of extension of existing sewer line for Audette Street.
Yeah, this request was initiated by the Public Works Director. There's plans to pave over Audette Street, and there are 3 residents at the location shown on your map that are currently not served by the sewer that runs down the street. And so what we did is we went to those residents and basically asked if they were interested in connecting to the sewer at some point in the future or now. And if they are, would they be willing to fund extending the sewer some 100 feet or so, 80 feet, and have service connections available to them so that in the future, if they want to connect to the sewer, that would already be in place and paved over by DPW so that there wouldn't be any disturbance of the street afterwards. And so we're asking for the sewer extension, and the residents agreed to pay for the hookup, to pay for this with betterment fees.
We're doing this so that there'd be no need to tear up a newly paved road.
That's correct.
But if they don't tie in now, won't they have to tear up the road to connect? Where is the...
No, the connection, if you look on the sketch, the sewer stub off on their, the extension stubs off on their property where it says service, the street areas there. So when they hook up to the sewer, all they'll have to do is hook up where it's being stubbed out.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
We think so.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Not yet.
I would make a motion to approve the extension at the cost of the residents of Audette Street.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the future, could we also raise just the left hand?
No.
Tough chairman, tough chairman.
Moving on, bids and requests for proposals. DPW Director Bellucci requests approval to advertise invitation to bid for new used grass mower brush cutter.
I think we've been through this a few times already. Just an explanation that became a question last time is funding. I think earlier you approved a carryover of $20,080 to be used for the partial payment of the estimated cost for the mower, and $10,000 more was appropriated at financial town meeting. That makes the total estimate cost of the mower at $32,000. Of course, it's going to be bid, and hopefully the bid will be that number or less, so we don't have to come back for more money.
Do you have any idea how many bidders you're going to have?
Last year, we got two. The low bidder was $32,000, and the second bidder was $59,000. But the $59,000 was a Cadillac, and the low bidder was a Ford.
Of course, the equipment is now a year old. If you negotiate this price, remember...
I'm not negotiating. It's going to be, it's out to bids. Out to bids.
Now, there's no date on when the bid is returnable.
Yeah, I am going to, there's no bid for advertising either. I'm going to put it in the newspaper as soon as they come out at the end of the week and expedite this. Hopefully bids will be open, and we'll have to wait to presumably award it after July 1st, when all the funding will be in place.
Well, we could award it, subject to being effective as
Okay,
of.
that's even faster.
But
That's
there's no
good.
date. When I'm asking for sealed bids must be received on or before, and it's left blank.
Yes, I intentionally left that blank until the council either approved or disapproved it. And hopefully, if you approve it, I am going to make that advertising date and award date as short as possible, so bingo, July 1st, hopefully we can start cutting grass. But I didn't put the dates in there till it was
No, I think
approved.
there should be a date, and I'll
Okay.
tell you why. So if it was tomorrow, people would raise questions, and the council would. I think there has to be a reasonable time when people, if you want to solicit bids, so, but I think a date should be in here.
I don't have a calendar, but,
I can't advertise it. Is it going to be advertised in the Kind of Times? Is that what it is?
yeah, I would say this Connor Times and the
That's not till
Newport
next week anyway.
Daily
which is
News.
Beginning of June. This won't be awarded before the June 28th meeting if it's on then. So I mean, I can't see the rush between. Yeah, I'll put, yeah.
Yeah, it should,
So
we'll put,
probably we'll have a deadline to get
Two-
them
two
into
weeks.
you around the 20th of June or the 15th or 20th. We always allow them 10. 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, we always allow it at least 10 days after its publication.
2 weeks.
About June 21.
June 21, that sounds good.
28th on this.
So that'll give us time to give you time.
Open the bid. Now we have a motion with the date of June 21st.
Yes, I will make a motion that we approve the bid for a return date of June 21st, 2010.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion.
I just would like to make a comment that I have nothing against Mr. Berlucci, and I have nothing against Demoa, but this entire process has bothered me from day one, and it just doesn't sit well with me, that's all I can say.
I'd say it was a learning experience for me also.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-1. Recreation Commission, Bobby Martin, request approval to advertise invitation to bid for the twirl merry-go-round for Boogamarsh Road Playground.
We request to advertise for this piece of equipment for the playground, and funding, once again, will be coming from the DEM grant to complete this. We have the specifications attached to it, and as soon as we can get approval, we'll go out, reasonable time, get the bids back, open them, and move forward.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request to solicit the bids for the twirl merry-go-round to be installed at the Boogamarsh Recreation Area with funding available from the DEM grants.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded, discussion.
I just want to make a suggestion to Bobby Martin. What I would suggest is you restrict the use of this merry-go-round for 30 days for politicians only. See if we can square them away before the kids use it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on, Town Administrator, announcements, comments, questions.
Wait a minute. Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry, John.
You have an item there, I-1.
Yes, that's what he just addressed, I think.
Yes. Follow-up.
This is a draft. As a result of the financial town meeting, we are obligated to go for a waiver. This is a draft, and prior to submitting this, I will contact the Department of Revenue to see exactly what forms they need. There may be too many forms in this package. Like the disclosure statement may not be required. I will talk to them before submitting it, but these are the results of the financial town meeting.
Jim, I think your covering letter needs to be sort of introduced with the fact these are the results of the financial town meeting. And I would hope that the town solicitor, because we are in litigation, has a chance to review it. This notice of proposed property tax rate, that may have been fine in 2008 when the budget committee came to the town and said, we've got to seek approval. But it seems pointless at this point, because what are we going to do with a notice or an ad? Financial town meeting is acted.
Right, and that's why I said that form may not be.
Fine.
Are we all finished with that discussion?
Well,
I do
we'll-
have an issue I want to raise.
Okay, let me just also, I do plan on I've reviewed it briefly, obviously.
Okay.
With the press of time from the STM, Mr. Council wanted to get it to you on the agenda, so I didn't have a chance to review it before that. That's why it's marked draft. But we will be incorporating those comments, as well as not apologizing for the lateness of the request, since it's not anything our fault or anything like that. It's a matter of the political process, so
Yeah.
that will be done.
I take it, Mr. Gonzalo, that you're not requesting or recommending a vote by the town council for this certification at this point.
In fact, a vote is not required. This is an action of the financial town meeting, which the town administrator needs to put forward as an administrative, it's basically a ministerial act to convey the financial town meeting's resolve to the
Then
state.
Let me direct my question to the town solicitor then. At some point before there is a tax levy, will there be a vote by the town council?
No.
Okay.
Not under your charter.
Well, I want to make it clear, and I'm going to, let me first of all make it clear how I'm going to vote with respect to any process to send this up to the Division of Municipal Finance or any effort to impose the tax levy increase. I'm not going to vote for or against any request for a waiver that exceeds the 4.5% cap. But also, I will abstain from any vote. And what I would like to do, if I can take a couple of minutes, I'd like to explain my vote, because I think there's some possible benefit out of this. Personally, I believe the vote of the financial town meeting to exceed the state mandated cap was a mistake, and it's going to exacerbate this town's competitive disadvantage. Just the past week, there was a conference of the New England Economic Partnership that described Rhode Island as having the most grim economic situation in New England. Professor Ross Gittell, a vice president of that group, at a recent economic forum at Bryant University, characterized the Rhode Island economic picture as, quote, bleak, and projected an unemployment rate that could reach 13.5% in the next year. Even with the end of recession, according to this professor, Rhode Island will possibly end up with 44,000 fewer jobs. It's interesting to note that locally over the last week or so, the front page news in the Providence Journal, in the Newport Daily, and the Secaunet Times has essentially been to describe what's been called a circus in Tiverton. And we've had elaborate reporting on the Central Falls receivership. In sharp contrast to that, next door in Fall River, We have 2 Indian tribes vying to establish a casino that could mean 8,000 or 9,000 jobs. And we have the University of Massachusetts, which is looking to build a 300-acre biolab park. I think that probably helps to understand why yet another survey just this past month identified Rhode Island as the worst state in the country for doing business. And I think, at least in my own way, I've made my own survey of what's going on here in Tiverton from an economic viewpoint. And that's simply by driving down Main Road. As of Sunday, if my count is correct, between State Road and the Old Stone Bridge, there are now 20 vacant commercial buildings and empty storefronts. And there are 29 signs identifying properties, quote, for sale, for lease, or for rent. And of course, the most recent is the Bank of America building. By abstaining and telling you that I will abstain on any vote that pushes this process forward, I'm not voting against the levy. But I think that there's something positive that can come out of this, and that is, at least to the extent that I can, I will be insisting that we find out, finally, whether we're actually following the law. You already know my viewpoint from the statute, Section 44-5-2, which begins at subsection E, and I'm quoting, "Any levy pursuant to subsection D of this section in excess of the percentage increase specified in subsection A of this section shall be approved by the affirmative vote of at least 4/5 of the full membership of the governing body of the city or town." I take that 4/5 vote to mean a full membership vote of 4/5 mandated by state statute before this town can exceed the cap. That is a supermajority. And if only a majority of the FTM approved the tax levy we're considering, we effectively have no cap in Tiverton. And I say that because all we need is a majority vote of the FTM if the budget is below the cap, and now all we need is a majority vote if the budget is above the cap. The closest statement we have from the Division of Municipal Finance for an interpretation of this section was provided in December of 2008, and that was a report on the property tax cap fiscal year 2009. And I'm quoting, "This division has advised towns that the 4/5 council vote is also necessary for FTM towns. Nevertheless, we believe clarification language could be helpful, especially for those towns where the council does not play a role in a budget or tax levy approval," in parentheses, Lincoln and Tiverton. I believe the state statute mandates that this town council, in fact, does have a role. In fact, this requirement was set out in a form letter to Mr. Gonzalo in May of 2008 when this issue was last raised. And it reads in part, "I should note that this excess levy as authorized by the Department of Revenue must be approved by an affirmative vote of at least 4/5 of the full membership of the governing body and a majority of the electors at the financial town meeting." I believe by abstaining on this vote, we may at least have an opportunity to have the Division of Municipal Finance address the issue, and I think this is the issue. Is the town council's approval required? If so, is it a 4/5 vote, or is it simply enough to have a majority vote of the financial town meeting? I would suggest that we should include in any letter that is sent to the Division of Municipal Finance a specific request to address this issue, and that we have an answer from the division of municipal finance with their opinion before we try to levy another excess tax when we get a response from whatever material Mr. Gonzalo is sending to Providence. In short, I am abstaining, and it'll remain my position that in order to have an effective tax cap in this town, we need a supermajority. I don't care whether it's from the town council or whether it comes from the financial town meeting, but I think that the statutory obligation is clear enough. There was a legislative intent to have a supermajority. The town council has wrestled with this in the past. We haven't come up with a solution, and so now we'll ask the Division of Municipal Finance to give us their opinion, and we can go from there. Thank you.
Jim, do you have any other announcements, comments, or questions?
Yes, I do.
Before he does, Mr. President, I'd like to say something.
Mr. President, may I say that I think we gave Mr. Lambert courtesy, he's a member of the council, but I think the discussion is out of order. The people in the town have spoken. I don't know how anybody on this body voted. I wasn't watching to see who voted for what. But I disagreed with the financial town meeting myself. But they have made their motion. We're following the advice of our town solicitor, whom we pay well, I think. And let's get on with this.
I would just like to say,
Two things. One is, I'd like to let Jim finish, and we're going to go into council announcements, comments, and questions, and you can all have an opportunity to address any issue you want to. Mr. Lambert raised it under the follow-up actions to the financial town meeting, and I allowed him to do so because that was on our agenda, not as just a comment or question, but as a specific item. So, Jim, you finish your comments and questions, and we'll move on to the council announcements.
Okay. Booger Marsh Field. The basketball court will be painted on June the 7th. And the fencing will be erected this week. We are currently in full swing working on the track. So I'd like to, anyone who's going by there, it was a chore to get this all rolling, but it's come a long, long way in the past 12 months. The next item is paving. We will be paving Kearns Avenue, portions of Kearns Avenue, Hooper Street, Connecticut Street, and the funding will be coming from both National Grid and the North Tiverton Fire District, as well as some stimulus money and possible FEMA money. The sewer line and the undermining of the sewer line. FEMA has approved an engineering firm. The cost of that engineering firm is $6,500, and our share will be $1,625, which we will have to cover. Regarding taxes, we have, as of today, we have 3.43% of our levy uncollected, which amounts to $782,000. As compared to last year it was 3.4, so we are running 0.03% behind. Last year's uncollected at this point was $722,000. I repeat, this year $782,000 at this point. There is going to be, on Saturday, June 19th, at the Highway Department, recycling of large, hard plastic items, things like lawn furniture, kids' toys, etc. On July 17th, there's going to be a hazardous waste drop-off at the DPW. July 17th, which is a Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I neglected to mention for the large hard plastic, that's 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on June the 19th. That's all I have.
Jim, before we move on, one issue that came up before the financial town meeting was this issue that if a school was closed, the bonds would be called. And I know that you checked with bond counsel at two firms, Partridge Snow and as well as Edwards and Angel. But the response was circulated to the council. But it should be out there because I saw it again in print that if a school was closed, then the bonds would be called. And I think what you should do is circulate to the press and to the school committee the response that you received. Because the rumor is an error, and it should be put to bed.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions for the administrator when he gets done taking his notes. Is there, is my memory correct that there is an Economic Development Commission meeting? I think it's this Thursday.
Yes, at 5 p.m. at the Old Christopher's, which is the new
Family Ties.
Family Ties,
That's
at 5 p.m.
5 p.m. And then the other question simply is hazardous material on July 17th. Does that include used motor oil?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Do they still collect used motor oil on a regular basis? I think they do it in highway. Yeah, okay. So you can take it to highway anytime.
Anytime. So anybody can do it anytime?
Yes.
Okay.
Clean oil. No antifreeze, water. Because it costs us $700 to empty a tank out if it's contaminated. Clean oil. Please.
Is that it, Jim?
That's it. Thank you.
Council announcements, comments, and questions.
Mr. President, I too was upset with the final outcome of the financial town meeting, but I agree with some of what Mr. Lambert has said, and I do believe that it is ambiguous whether or not a supermajority is needed from this council to go to the state. But I was elected by all the people in Tiverton, and if their will is to increase the taxes on themselves, and that's how they voted, then I have to respect their wishes. I personally may not like it, but that is the will of the people of the town of Tiverton. And no matter how slim a majority that passed it, it did pass, and we have to live with that budget. And my understanding is that if we chose not to request to go over the cap, that we are still liable for that budget, so that we would have to find funds other than taxes to make up that budget. And whether it means cutting municipal, because that's the only side that we can affect, and so that whatever that outcome is, we are liable for that budget. That is the budget for the town of Tiverton. And if we do not request to go over the cap, then we have to find other ways to find those funds, and without taxation. And I don't know where we would find that money.
And that's why I'm abstaining. I'm not voting against the levy. I just want to make it clear that we finally have an understanding of whether or not this state statute applies to the town of Tiverton and whether the town council has a role in putting the tax levy together.
We may get that, in the Coulter case, one way or the other. I mean, the state law, whether you're on one side or another, is unclear. There are regulations that they promulgated under the law, which you left out, but the regulations are very clear, and it says 4/5 if you're a council, or a majority of the financial town meeting. Now, granted, is the state law really clear? No, but at some point, we're going to get an answer, and it may be from the court.
Thank you, Mr. President. With regards to this exact topic, in 2008, the town levied a tax in excess of the cap. The town council in 2008 did not take a 4/5 vote. The result was a lawsuit. Here we sit 2 years later with the same solicitor, slightly different counsel, I believe, but the same solicitor, in basically the same position, being told by the solicitor there is no vote needed. First of all, I question the legal advice, because it would seem as though if the solicitor had the true heart of protecting the town, he would be arguing out of an abundance of caution that this vote should be taken.
Mr. President, I think this is.
Secondly, I'd like to make one more point. The only legal argument, okay, that I've heard from the solicitor is that the tax cap statute is unconstitutional, okay? And that's how you get to this point where no vote is needed. So by this body going down this road of not taking a vote, you're essentially saying that we're going to spend legal money to disprove and make the case that the tax cap is unconstitutional. And I'm not sure, I think it's important for the taxpayers and the people of this town to know that this town council, by not taking a vote, is essentially saying, we're going to go and we're going to prove that the tax cap statute is unconstitutional, because that is what is about to happen.
I don't believe that that is the policy, or that is the, what the intent of this is. We're acting on legal advice from our solicitor that it was an unnecessary vote to be taken, and that the matter that took place at the financial town meeting and a majority vote there is what's needed, and we will send that information to the state when we request exemption from the 4.5%. The rest of this matter will be resolved by the way it is. I mean, we tried to resolve this, and we're unable to, and said we're going to let the courts render the decision. The decision will tell us where we have to go in the future. But up until now, I'm going to take the advice I've been given by our attorney, and we're going to proceed in the manner in which we're proceeding, and that's it. It's not a statement of unconstitutionality or anything else.
The only argument I've heard the solicitor ever state is that this statute is unconstitutional.
Jeff, we're taking the matter the way we're taking it, and I know you're upset about the outcome of the financial town meeting. That is the outcome by a majority vote. We're going to proceed as we have, and we will get the resolve we need to this issue one way or another. Anyone else from the council with comments or questions? And then the town solicitor, announcements, comments, questions.
First item is, you have the report from Bob Hoffman, the town's engineer, regarding the Bay Street contamination. The situation continues. He's provided you both a narrative report and color pictures of the continuing issues. There was a meeting Thursday night. There was a meeting of many of the residents, and both Assistant Solicitor Gene Scott and Bob Hoffman attended that meeting as well. I have reports from them that I will be submitting to you next in executive session, given the possibility that there may be further litigation, and those sanitized versions of those reports will be made public subsequently. But the situation, I think, is not getting any better, let's put it that way. The next item is the Ethics Commission opinions regarding Councilor Bolin and Councilor Costa as far as the Tiverton Yacht Club. And in the packet, you have the staff recommendations from each. With Councilor Costa, it's straightforward. The Ethics Commission did vote unanimously. It was actually, well, 7 votes, were 7 present, 7 in the affirmative, no negative, to adopt that as their official opinion. So there is no conflict. He is capable of voting on the matter. As to Council President Bolin, the staff recommendation was that there was not a conflict either. However, the Ethics Commission split in its deliberations. There actually was a vote of, there were 4 votes in favor, 2 against, 1 abstention, and 1 recusal. But by their own rules, they needed 5 votes in the affirmative in order to adopt the advisory opinion. So therefore, they did not adopt it, and therefore, it would be, you would not have any protection if you did not recuse yourself. So the recusal would be recommended.
Your recommendation will be taken.
Right, and in fact, as you indicated even to them, that you did not have a problem, you weren't advocating one way or another, you simply wanted to get the guidance. So the guidance is recuse. And then, just finally, I don't want to rehash the hours and hours debate we've had over the 4/5 vote and whatnot, but I am a bit, if you've got any questions, I don't mean to duck it either. I just don't see the need to rehash it unless you have anything specific you want to inquire about.
Okay, at this time, we'll entertain motions for executive session.
I'll make the motion that we enter into executive session under litigation 22-46-5A2.
So moved.
And
No,
stand
that's a
exec-
motion, you need a...
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, seeing none, all those in favor?
And to remain in executive session under 42-46-5A6, prospective business or industry.
Seconded.
Okay, discussion, seeing none, all those in favor?
And to remain in executive session under 42-46-5A2, under collective bargaining, IBPO, IAFF, and Teamsters.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, seeing none, all those in favor? We're now in executive session.